So here's the security operations concepts, okay? Foundational security operations concepts. So key operational concepts, and these are things that we've already talked about. So let's pick up on the ones that we haven't. Let's see if there are any like that. We have the controlling privileged accounts, right? Need to know least privilege, so we did talk about that. Managing account using groups and roles, yeah, we did RBAC. Separation of duties and responsibilities, yeah, we talked about that. Monitor special privileges, we did emphasize that, didn't we? Job rotation, mandatory vacation, no, we haven't talked about that. So what does job rotation, mandatory vacation has anything to do with security? Terry, that's what I used to think. That was it. Knowing everyone for the job. You know, when I was in the military, that was stress. Hey, you know, cross-trained. If one person goes down, the other person can pick up where they left off. I thought it was all for the good. But in far as, I guess, availability is concerned, that would be security. But what else? There's actually another side to this, right? Is it a good thing for someone to be in the same position for, let's say, 20 years until they retire? Why not? Too relaxed and things happen. Exactly, that's right. So, you know, unfortunately, things do happen within what the category, the threats called the insider. And, you know, I'm not sure. I don't think you can actually control how people feel and think and what they want to do, right? You really can't. I mean, people change too. And, you know, the private lives sometimes come into the corporate life, and, you know, they do bad things because, you know, because they feel they need to. So given that we can't control how people feel and what they want to do, we can certainly control the environment in which they work, right? So even though they may have those inclinations and motivations, we don't give them the opportunity to do so, right? And one of that is job rotation, so that you rotate people out of jobs. You know, frequently in the military, it's like a year, 3 years, maximum 3 years, I think, when I was in anyway. So you move out the post completely, and you go do something different. And the mandatory vacations, these are where a little less harsh than job rotation, but you make people go at least like 10-day vacation a year, at least 10 days, not like 3 or 4 days. It has to be long enough so that the person who's replacing that person for that time is able to find some unusual activities if there are any. So they're mandatory vacations, not optional. And when I tell that to people, I say, oh, I wish we had that kind of policy. Right? So I'm not sure if you have that kind of policy, but that's basically what's there. That's what it's there for. And the managed information lifecycle. So information lifecycle is where the data is created, the data is used, stored, shared, archived, and then destroyed. Right. So that would be a typical lifecycle. So you have to manage the information lifecycle depending upon which phase it is. Right. You have to protect it, even though it's archived. Let's say for long term. Maybe you have to, because of the data retention policy, you have to retain the data for, let's say, 10 years or something. It still has to be protected unless it becomes declassified. Okay. SLA, service level agreements, right? So availability, confidentiality, integrity, they're all parts. They should all be part of the SLA. So we have to abide by them. And it'll be good for you to remember to kind of know the uptime of 99.999. Actually, I have like 5 nines there, but it's actually 99.999. So with 5 nines, how many days out of the year do you think, if you say I am up 99.99999% of the time, 99.999% of the time? Harry. Except on a leap year. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Chris. This sounds like hours per quarter. Yeah, you'll be surprised. You'll really be surprised. So let me just go ahead and click on this because I have the site. So let me just make it 99.999. There it is, okay, 5 nines. and then I say go for it. Do the enter key. Be right. So here we go. Annually, 5 minutes. Oh, you mean 99.999, Terry? Yeah. So remember, these are unplanned for downtime. So you don't count, planned downtime. If it's only 5 minutes out of the year, you can't. Yeah, you can't do anything with it. Yeah, it probably takes that long. And with Unix, you could say, yep, this thing's been running for a year. We haven't rebooted it once, but of course, we don't have the luxury. It used to anyway with Windows. Yep. So the scary thing about that, Terry, is that if you have to bring it down, how do you know it's going to come back up? Okay, good. All right, that's fine. Yeah, I know, right? So that's the cultural difference between the Unix server maintenance people and the Windows server people. They're different. They said, it's very usual for Unix servers that you can patch without rebooting. Yeah, sure, there you go. Windows, that's not the case most of the time. You have to reboot. Yeah, there you go. It's a fundamental difference. The reason why I have 99.999 out here, and remember 5 minutes, Christopher, it's not hours, but minutes, right? Is that you may get something like this on the test. So just remember that. So 5 nines. By the way, if you actually do have 5 nines after, if somebody said, oh yeah, we're up 99.99999% of the time. Yep. What they mean then is 3 seconds annually. That's what they mean. Anyway, getting back to what's important here. Employing resource protection techniques. So let's take a look at that. Right. So we have to divide between tangible assets versus the intangible assets. Right. Something you can touch and something you can't. Physical assets, facilities, intellectual properties, information in general fall under this category. And when you have hardware assets, these are all the hardware assets that you probably have to protect. Especially the cloud and virtual storage, right? That's like a whole different paradigm. But when you have something like reuse, you have to make sure there's no remnants, right? So remnants is something that's remaining after you delete something, yeah, because you didn't do a complete delete, right? Usually, other than the solid-state devices, SSDs, degaussing probably is the most sure way of getting rid of it, because it was just it's a strong magnetic electrical influence on the data, and just like resets everything, right? But with solid-state devices, you can't. Okay. There is something called the ATA secure delete, and that will usually take care of it on the SSDs. All right. Moving on. Conducting instant response. Okay. Now we'll come to instant response, and we talked about what is an instant, right? Baseline, event, incident. Okay. Instant management. Security measurements, metrics, and reporting. So if you do instant management, you have to be able to show that you are doing an effective job of it by measuring your performance by metrics and reporting. Okay. Usually, though, when we're talking about security response or incident response, we're talking about managing the security technology such as boundary controls. So boundary controls are, once again, firewall and everything that kind of forms that boundary between inside and outside. The process is this. First of all, we're all talking about controls, and the detection control comes after deterrent control and protective control, right? I'm sorry, preventive control. So you have deterrent control that makes it sound like, oh, I don't even want to go there, because it looks kind of scary with all those guards. By the way, dogs, okay? Problem with using dogs. What do you think that problem is? There's a problem using dogs as a control measure. It is unpredictable, exactly. So there's a liability issue with dogs, so just remember that, okay? And then let's say, it's not a deterrent. People come in, but you have the wall, you have the fence, you have the electrical fence, and there are various types of electrical fences that you have to know. The sensors, so that would be hopefully preventive. But if it doesn't prevent it, somebody just like bounds, high, tall buildings like Superman, then you definitely want to detect it. And that's where the story begins. You want to detect. Intrusion detection system, even for the physical devices, physical in the outside world, physical security, as well as in the inside world in the network. Anti-malware, security information event management, right? All these things will help you to detect, okay? And you respond. When you detect it, you respond. And you respond hopefully to not willy-nilly, but you have the nice process that we talked about where you do the triage and right? You do the investigation and you control, right? You contain. These are the things. Reporting is reporting to people that needs to know about it. So it could be the escalation reporting. It could be reporting to your stakeholders who needs to know what's happening. Stakeholders are people that have any kind of stake in the company. Okay, and then recovery if it need be, right? And remediation review, so that hopefully next time one can maybe prevent it, or to respond better, or if there's any shortcomings to fix that. So there's going to be a maturity process into it, continual maturity. Okay. Do root cause analysis and problem management. So you make it a questions like, what do you do? How do you when do you do the real deep down problem solving, okay, of something? And notice how the instant response passes to problem management. See that? You do root cause analysis and problem management. So the problem management is where you actually do the deep dive into what happened and what was the problem and how can we fix it. So it's usually done separate from the instant response. It's just the instant response process hands off onto the problem management. Just kind of remember that part as well. Security audits and reviews, sure, of course, right? You do that. Let's see. That these thing, I think it doesn't hurt anymore, but it's still red. So I think that the needle is still in there. Ick. All right, so that is instant response, and it's very light. Okay, very light. Okay, operate and maintain preventive measures. Preventative measures. Okay. So here it is. You want to prevent unauthorized disclosures, for sure. So destruction, interruption, and theft, and that's what you're trying to prevent. Corruption and improper modification, there you go. Integrity problems, okay, you're trying to prevent that. And in order to prevent it, one way, of course, is to first detect it, okay, and then put some preventive measures into it. Network intrusion detection system, NIDS, HIDS. The IDSs in general finds these malicious activities or behaviors in these 4 ways. One is called stateful matching. So it matches patterns, right? So it's pattern matching, just like the antivirus softwares, they look for patterns, right? But it's becoming less and less effective as more and more attacks morph in form, so that they don't look the same. But the thing is, they don't look the same, but the attack still happens. So the behavior of attacking is still remain the same, but the way it comes into the system looks different. So if the IDS is only looking for these patterns, they're going to miss it. It's going to look like a zero-day attack. Okay. So in that way, then, well, how do you find these zero-day attacks? Well, you look for the behavior, don't you? Because if you can't match the pattern, you have to look at what it's trying to do. And that would be the statistical anomaly. Like, wow, this thing is like trying to access all kinds of files. That's weird. Let's stop it. Okay. So statistical anomaly, you're looking for that as well. So high-end IDSs will do this, right? Protocol anomaly. So there's something wrong with the protocol. An example would be ping of death. Ping of death. That ICMP message looks different. Okay. You're using the protocol in the wrong way. So that will catch it. Okay. Traffic anomaly. You see something like a DOS happening? Sure. That's going to raise an alarm that says there's massive amount of traffic coming in. That's weird. So let's see what we can do. By the way, protecting from DOS. How would you protect your company from DDoS? DDoS. Else, Terry? Like, botnets attacking you? Okay, so Terry, you're basically talking about when the DDoS is knocking on your door, that you don't open the door, right? That's basically what you're saying. Yep, but it's not going to stop the DDoS from happening, though. You close the door, but your driveway is full, so nobody can come in. And true, you don't want the DDoS to come in. Yes, that's true. So what you do with that, that's good. But is there any way that you can actually stop this thing from coming to your doorway in the first place? It's still coming to your door. So there's actually one way. There's really not something that you can do, because look, if it's already coming to your router, coming to your firewall, it's too late. The DDoS has already happened. It's denied service to people on the outside. Now you have protected yourself from that affecting people on the inside, which is good. Okay. In order for you to stop these DDoS from actually coming to your doorway, is to work with your ISP. You have to stop it before it comes to you. Right? And some ISPs do provide services like this because they have more visibility into what's coming into your network, and they can try to stop it before it comes to your network. It's a service. Yeah. So there you go. So that would be the traffic anomaly. Yeah, Terry. So you are the ISP, right? Where would you put that? Usually static routes are, you only control the routers that you control to put static routes in. That means they're already coming to your router. Right? You can't put a static route in somebody else's router. Yeah, sure. Sure. Yep. Yep, can do. Based on source address, so you would, if you want to stop that at the router, you would use an extended ACL. And they're coming up with all kind of boxes. I'm sure there's a box that says, hey, we stop DDoS. But with the DDoS though, like I said, if it's already at your door, it's too late. Half the job is already done. So you want to stop it before it comes. Yeah, in fact, do it yourself, specialized on-premise equipment. That's all. Once you come to your premise, you use the ISP and cloud DDoS mitigation. So once again, it's a provider that goes to the cloud before it comes to you. So it's like a WAF, right? Except for your network. Yep. Okay. So that would be the traffic anomaly. One more traffic anomaly that I want to talk about is called the dark net. Okay, dark net. Now it's not dark web, right? It's not the Tor thing. Okay. The dark net is a network segment. Yeah, Terry. You're a Tor user, aren't you, Terry? I can tell. Not in a while? You know who developed Tor? Not offhand? Navy. It was Navy, Christopher. It was the Naval Research Laboratories. And they developed Tor mainly for dissidents, so that they can, they can state their opinion even if deep in the China where those things weren't allowed at the time. So they could use Tor, access SNS, make a statement. So it was mainly for dissident. It was mainly for the force of good. But now, with those tools, though, now you have all kinds of shady people using it too. Not to say, Terry, that you're shady. There are a lot of good people using it too. Yeah, so that's what it was meant for. Okay, so here it is. So the dark net is where it's a network segment that you have nothing that is working. No server, no client, no nothing. Okay. But when hackers are trying to scan, they don't know that, right? So they may be looking for some activity on that network segment, and then you may see segment activity, so that you know that it's not coming from you, it's coming from somebody else, somebody that doesn't know that it's a dark net. Lights off. Okay, so that would be looking at the traffic anomaly as well. Okay, of course here I think somewhere, someplace I may have missed it. Honeypots, right? So honeypots are to lure. I think we did cover it. And the honey nets are, the network segment that has honeypots in it. Okay. Intrusion response, alarms and signals, and that's basically what IDSs do. IDSs, if they match a pattern or if they detect an intrusion, they will warn somebody. Okay. And they will log, right? And if it does not match, they just ignore it. Okay. And IDS management. IDSs has to be managed. And basically, let's take a look at my whiteboard. Add a tab. Save this thing just in case. I haven't made a PDF yet. I figure I was going to write some more, but I will soon. So let's say that here it is. Here's your router. Okay, here's your firewall. And let's say you have an IDS right here. Okay, so IDSs are supposed to be stealthy, right? Stealthy. Hackers not supposed to know that you have an IDS, or even if they know, they don't know, where it's being monitored. Okay, so in this case, though, usually IDSs will not even have an IP address because they want to be stealthy. IDSs are not there to speak; they're just there to listen. Okay, but if you don't have an IP address, how are you going to manage it? Anybody? Any ideas? How do you manage an IDS if there's no IP address in that interface? Very good. Very good. That's right. So you do have to manage it, and you don't have to walk up to the device and hook up your terminal to it. That would be so inconvenient, wouldn't it? So you have a management segment. Right? And yes, of course you have an IP address there. Okay? And you want to make sure that you are you have to really control access to that. Only admins, right, have access to it. And firewalls could be that way too. I'm sure routers could be that way too. All these devices could be managed from the management segment. Very good. So there it is. Of course, you have to update the IDSs, right? For any patterns, any statistical things that you're looking for, these have to be updated. By the way, so we do updating of anti-malware, we do updating of IDSs, IPSs, firewall rules, router rules. We update all these things, right? So how often do you update these things? Every 6 months, every 3 months, every month, every week, frequently. That's right. Yeah, and so I want to introduce you to one site, which also is something that you need to know for the exam as well. It's called OSSTMM. I'm not sure if you know that. Okay, so I'm going to show you right now what that is. Okay, so there's an organization called ISSP, and they produce a document called, they're the keeper of the key for OSSTMM. It's open source security testing methodology manual. It's free. There is you do have to contribute to get the beta version of what they're producing. It's run by a guy named Pete Herzog. He's a Spaniard, and he's in Spain. And they've been around for a while, okay? And they actually certify people in the OSSTMM, but that's not the point that I wanted to bring. First of all, you need to be familiar with OSSTMM because they have application testing methodology, Wi-Fi testing methodology, physical security testing methodology. They have all these testing methodology. They're very nice, okay? They also certified pen testers based on their OSSTMM methodologies. And for those people that are certified, and when they do a pen testing, they have an option to take that report of the customer and anonymize it. So sanitize it, take away all the identification about the customer and all that, and then feed back the type of vulnerabilities that they found, and feedback the report, because there is a template of report that they also give you. And what they do then is they gather statistics on how often did they update and what kind of risk they have and what kind of vulnerabilities they found. So then, as an output to that, they used to anyway, I think they still do, give you metric on if you don't update, let's say IDS on weekly basis, every week your security posture goes down by 5% or something. Same thing on other devices like the firewalls, the host-based IDSs. This one, yeah, you know what? I'm not exactly sure if you need to know it, but it's a good site though. I've been there before and looked at some of the benchmarks. They have a nice set of benchmarks, and let's see. I can check this. Okay. Center for Internet Security. So here we go. Just a moment, because I have a Kindle version of the book. I actually have a iBook version of the book. CISSP. Let's take a look at that. Site though, Terry. Yeah, even if it's not an exam, it's a very good site. Yeah. Don't they have like a policy that you can upload into, you can just go ahead and use in Windows? First one, they have something like that. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so just a momento. Yep. Definitely. I definitely suggest it. Yep. It's searching, but it's not coming up, so it may not be one of the places that you need to know. Yeah, I'm letting it search, but it's not coming up. I don't know why. They should. Yeah. Very good. Hey, thank you for that, Terry. Okay, so getting back. Okay. So, if you to get that statistic, you would be able to kind of make a decision and say, look, why are we doing this every month? Because if you do every month, on a firewall and IDSs, our security posture could possibly go down by, let's say, 15%. Now, is that good enough? That is, do we violate our tolerable risk if the risk posture changes by 15%? And the answer may be no. If that's the case, well, what is the buffer then that we have? Is it 10%? Is it 5%? And then you say it's 5%. Okay, so 5%, that means we have to update it every 3 days. See what I mean? So there's some data behind the decisions. And this whole movement, I think, it wasn't around when OSS/TMM came around, but this whole thing about the data-driven anything is catching on, isn't it? So everything is decided using data. Somebody must have written a book about it, because everybody's like talking about, well, if you make decisions based on data, that people's revenue go up or something. I think that's where they started. So you have data-driven security too. Right, that I've shown you before. So there's a data-driven security, right? It's all about the data. Alrighty, we kind of got off on that using the IDS management. Okay. List, right? White list, black list, gray listing. So we did talk about that. Implicit deny, implicit allow. Implicit deny would be the strictest. Another question, Terry. Do you use whitelisting or blacklisting? Or both? Because you're in the education field, right? So depends on where. Yeah, how about students? They have neither? What, they don't have a list? Academic freedom! Oh my goodness! That's scary. Not allowed to restrict their use. Wow, so how do you control their use? I guess you don't, because you'll be restricting. What? Doesn't even make sense. You still have to have security and privacy and all that. Ah, per law. Wow. See, I just knew that corporate is pretty black and white. It's whitelisting, usually. I've had customers though that said they had to use blacklisting because they had too many applications they have to install. Right, right. So actually, that's going to be a topic, by the way. I didn't cover it, but the copyright material. There's I'm not sure if it's a law, but it allows for the usage of copyright material without having permission, right? Is it free use? Students downloading music and movies illegally. Well, what is that? What is the copyright? What is the regulation or law that allows for people to use copyrighted material without asking permission? I think it was free use or something. Fair use, Christopher. Thank you very much. Fair use. Yep, very good. Right. If it's something else, then they do argue. Yep. Oh, about fair use? Kids using their stuff? Students. Oh, massive restriction. Okay, all right. All right, so those are the list. And by the way, the fair use thing, Christopher, I'm glad you remember the word because it's on the exam. Probably will be. Okay. Okay, so other methods of protecting is sandbox, right? So you have sandbox. The example that I would use, well, by the way, Java itself is a sandbox because the Java virtual machine is supposed to be sandboxing. So the point of the sandbox is that you don't mess with things that's on the outside of the sandbox. You just play inside your sandbox, right? And sandbox is very controlled, so you only get to do certain things. But the whole point, of course, is to not not interfere with things on the outside and not cause any security problems. So with Java, you have two modes of Java. You have Java application, Java applets. Java application are like regular old application. It runs on your top of the operating system. You know, you can write any kind of program that you could probably write on any other language using Java. Java applets are a little bit different. Java applets run inside something like a browser. You download the Java applet from a server. So that means first you have to trust the server. If you don't trust the server, then you definitely can't trust that Java applet that came down from that server. But if you still want to run it, then it will be hopefully in a very good secure sandbox. I have this link for you that you can go and look at what applets can and cannot do based on the sandbox. Okay, and it says there applets are either sandbox applets or privileged applets. Okay, so if it's labeled as sandbox applets, then it is run within something called the security sandbox. Only allows for safe operation. Okay, and let me see. Here it is. There are a bunch of stuff, so I'm not, you know, you're not responsible for all these things, but here are the main ones. Okay, they can make network connection to the host and port they came from. So if the applet is downloaded, it can talk back to the server, the same port where it came from. So most likely it'll be, you know, port 80 or port 443 with the same server. If it tries to go to a different port, or if it tries to go to a different server, can't do it. Okay, it's sandbox. Okay, protocols must match. You cannot be using switching protocols right in the midstream. Okay, and see. Okay, so it says applets that are loaded from the local file system, okay, have none of the restrictions that applet loaded over the network. So that makes sense. Also, they cannot do these things. So let me see. They're not supposed to read files too. They're not supposed to read. If you're not privileged, then you're not supposed to access the hard disk in your local resources, unless of course you are privileged. So here it is. Sandbox applets cannot perform these. Okay, you cannot access local resources like local file systems or clipboards, printers. Cannot connect to retrieve resources of any third-party server. Cannot load native libraries. Cannot change the security manager because security manager is what's controlling the sandbox. Cannot create a class loader that is to load up a brand new class dynamically, and cannot read certain system files, system properties. So there it is. So that's basically what a sandbox will do for the Java applets, right? But in general, that's what a sandbox do. Anti-malware, antivirus, sure. Okay, honeypots and honeynets. Oh, there it is. Okay, so honeypots are what? What are honeypots? Oh, here we already did cover this, didn't we? Yeah, that's right. Because I remember you talking to me about writing a honeypot using, was it Python? Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and go forward with this. Okay. Implement and support patch and vulnerability management. Okay, so here we go. Patch management. Okay. Intake and vet security and patch information. Right? You have to say, do I really need this thing? Okay. And you have to do patch prioritization and scheduling. Right? We'll show you where this thing goes way wrong. So patch testing, you have to make sure the patch is okay, right? That doesn't have any vulnerabilities itself. Change management, because you are changing the configuration, you're changing, right, the software itself because you're adding pieces to it. So you got to let people know. Patch installation and deployment, you do that making sure that you can always roll back, and of course you have to test it, right? Patch testing. So when you patch test, make sure everything's working after the patch. Audit and assess, make sure that patches have been installed and that they're good to go, and make sure you do that consistently and according to the compliance. Okay, so important. And when I was working for Symantec, by the way, you guys haven't guessed the other company that I was working for yet. I was working not for Symantec and then another company which is the red. The color is red and white. Okay, but anyway, when I was working for Symantec, we had a bunch of malware type of information, and they talked about how some people have advanced copies of the patch, or they get a hold of the patch very quickly, and they already find out what the vulnerabilities are on those patches, and they wait for people to apply those patches so they can go and attack it. Okay, so it happens, right? Because patch is just another piece of software. And this is where I want to show you. I may have talked about it, so if not, here it is. There's something called other goodies that I put in for you. Oh yeah, once again, for some reason this is not. I can't access it. Okay, so other goodies. And if you go here, okay, the CVE, padding Oracle OpenSSL. I'm sure I probably talked about it, but just another overview. So this was there's something called the Lucky 13 attack, which was vulnerable for OpenSSL for this version. I believe it was 1.0.1 or something. And Lucky 13 attack is a type of what's called a padding Oracle attack, but it is where somebody can actually look at the SSL and decrypt it fairly easily, okay, because of this flaw. But but the Lucky 13 was really hard to do. It was very complex. So they came out with a patch on it, okay? And they came out with a patch way back when in 2013, okay? 3 years later, 2016, somebody discovers a flaw in the patch. And it's another padding Oracle attack, but it's much easier than Lucky 13 attack. And it was there for 3 years. Okay, so God knows who have already accessed it using that. Okay, so no wonder SSL is no longer being used. But so there you go. So that's a perfect example of somebody patching it, and the patch gave worse vulnerability than the one they fixed. Okay, real true story. There we go. So I have it in here just in case you want to go over it and kind of test your knowledge on the thing. So it's going to test your knowledge on the CBC, the block cipher mode that we talked about for the block cipher, right? 5 modes of block cipher. The XOR, because we talked about XOR. The padding Oracle is a brand new type of. We haven't talked about padding Oracle, but this is the vulnerability. It's pretty interesting to look at. So I have all the resources for you to do that investigation for yourself, to do the research for yourself. Okay. Oh, by the way, just because we are on here, I do have the something called the Security Shepherd that you can try out if you want to. I will show it to you on the last hour. So if you want to use it, just let me know, and then I'll be able to log you in. And I do have the application security presentation if you're interested, but it's here. It's just for your information. Okay. Okie dokie. So going back. Okay, so that's basically patch management. Vulnerability management. Okay, so I would imagine vulnerability management probably comes before patch management, right? Because you patch things that are vulnerable, don't you? So how do you manage the vulnerabilities? Well, you gotta have a policy that says you're going to do it, and then you have to constantly keep an eye on what's new, right? What's vulnerable. I think I gave you the Storm Center podcast. They tell you on a daily basis new vulnerabilities that of any note, of any significance, and they'll mention it. But I think it was a few years ago. I think on a daily basis there was at least 25 to 30 vulnerabilities found. Not all vulnerabilities apply to you, obviously, but if they do apply to you, then you certainly don't want to leave it not checked for like a month, because you're going to have accumulation of all these vulnerabilities that you've missed, okay, handling. So that would be the start, wouldn't it? So on the left-hand side, you have the baseline, right? So what assets do we have? What policies do we have in place that will mandate us to do this? Service dependencies, right? So one vulnerability leads to another vulnerability, and standards, right? Basically, what are the things you need to do, and then assess based on that baseline. Do vulnerability assessment, threat risk assessment, if they have changed. Okay, and resolve the issue. So is it going to be patch management? Is it, you have to prioritize, or you have to remediate? Patching obviously is not the only way to remediate this thing, right? You can change the firewall, you can change the segmentation, you can do other things before you even patch. Now, if the software is fundamentally flawed, then yeah, of course you want to patch that. But like I said, patch may introduce something else, so it's not something you do lightly. And then think about it and say, why did this happen? Root cause analysis, monitor, upgrade if it's within your control. But more and more, as we become more dependent upon on the cloud, you leave that thing all up to your vendor, don't you, the cloud vendor. And if you're using something like PaaS, right, platform as a service, when they change things, it may break your application, so you do have to be careful, okay, in that way, hopefully. Okay, participate in and understand change management process. Okay, so change management. Concepts are here. Maintain system integrity when you make a change, right? Don't break the system. And somebody has to make the decision to make the change, okay? We don't do it unilaterally just because somebody tells you to. Codify the organizational policy. You got tied up with work, Lisa. This is work. Yeah, no problems. We're almost at the end of the security operations. Yeah. So maintain system integrity, and you see the process I have here. First, somebody makes a request, okay, and then hopefully the security folks will do the impact assessment on security side. You may have other groups doing other impact assessment, and Terry, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Doing the snag it, Terry. Yeah, peace. Yep. The anyway, request. So, and then you do the impact assessment. And basically, the impact assessment you're looking for is, whether you approve or disapprove is, hey, that change that you make, is it going to change our, security profile in any way? Is it going to increase our risk? And is that something that we could tolerate, right? Basically, that's what you're looking for. If it is something you could tolerate, probably this will be approved. If it's not, you have to go back and say, look, is there something we could do to reduce this risk? Okay. And then you build and test. And then notify people that's going to happen. And then implement, right? Do it. And then you have to validate and document. So very much like a patch management process. Okay? Because it is, right? Remember on patch management, it says do the change management. There it is. Okay. Configuration management. The concept, of course, is, hey, you have to maintain the configurations, okay? These config files, right? And the settings, right? Hardware inventory, software inventory, configuration lists, configuration guidance standards that you follow. There it is. So here it is, planned and identified. You put controls over it and make sure that it is being kept under control, and you do the audit to verify that it is under control. I think I mentioned that, most likely most customers will do this using an agent installed in servers, to make sure that people have not made these changes that put you out of alignment with the compliance. Okay, so that is configuration management. Now we're going to go into the BCP and DR. Okay, BCP and DR. So tell me, what is the relationship between BCP and DRP? What do you think? There's a relationship between that two? Continuity and disaster recovery? No? No connection. Okay. Right. Go right to the details, don't you, Terry? Yeah. Hmm. Okay. DR hosts the long-term and the distance recovery. Okay. So I think we may be talking about the same thing. So let's see. Okay. Let me go back into the whiteboard. Usually for the BCP and DR, they do. Yeah, Terry. That's right. It is. Exactly. So BCP and DR is related in this way, and the book actually has a kind of weird. It's like it's flipped a little bit. It's because they want to talk about DR first before they talk about BCP. If somebody asks you the order of events in preparation for and actually implementing these, it's the first thing is the business impact analysis, BIA. Okay, so it is basically a risk assessment, but more towards the identifying more about what is the critical operations in your company and what bad things could happen to it and how you can remediate it. That's basically what a BIA would do. Okay, business impact analysis, and then for all those things that are identified, the threats, the vulnerabilities, the bad impact, is you want to be able to handle it even before it really closes down shop. So it is about what just Terry mentioned. BC is to keep the company running. But it doesn't have to be keep the company running at full 100% capacity. That's not what it means. So it means that those critical functions must be running, because if those critical functions are gone, then you're out of business, right? Now you've actually shut all the shutters and the doors, and you're not operating. So the BIA feeds into things that you can actually do to keep the company running, which is BC, business continuity, okay, and planning, of course. Okay, but then there will be times where have occasions where you just couldn't prepare for, like a major earthquake. Okay, maybe you could. Well, actually, you could probably prepare for some of these major earthquakes by having data centers in totally different continent, right? But there are things that we can't manage, and things do happen where we have to close the doors for a while. Then that's when you go into disaster recovery, and of course the planning that goes into it. So that's usually the order, right? It's BCP and then you go DR. So it's BC and DR usually, okay? And yes, because we do start with the same playbook, I suppose, with the BIA, they are related in this way. So this will give support to the BCP and also will give support to the DRP as well. So with that, let's go into what the book is talking about. Because the book wants to talk once again about the disaster recovery first. Okay? Okay, so disaster recovery, I have their subtitle, Driven by Recovery Timeframe, which we will talk about. We will talk about what these recovery timeframes are. Okay? But the question is, how do you recover? You may have so these are all the list of things from the book. Okay? You may have surviving sites. So some sites may have survived in a major disaster. Okay, let's say Japan goes down because of a major earthquake, but maybe data center in Singapore survives. Okay, then you use that. That could be it. It could be self-service, so that things are made so that people are able to, in their own reconnaissances, to start recovering using some self-service type of facilities. Internal agreements. You may have some agreements between departments that says, look, if something bad happens to my department, could you help me, and we'll do vice versa. And the external version of that is the reciprocal agreements and mutual aid agreements, where you make those kinds of agreement with the external company. Say, hey, when something bad happens to our company, can you help us, and vice versa. Right? So one of the things that they always talk about in the exam on this is that you can't rely on these, because normally if you're doing this kind of reciprocal agreement with the companies in the area, same disaster is going to hit them too, right? And even if you were to survive, when the push comes to shove, right, you may not want to help the other party because you don't have enough resources. You just have enough to perhaps just help yourself. So people may renege on that agreement. So they talk about don't rely on it too much. Okay. They have dedicated alternate sites. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Hopefully. Oh, really? Okay. So would that be considered external or internal agreements? It's external. Okay. Oh, nice. That's nice. And they're spread out too, right? But they're all in California. Is that right? Oh, interesting. Interesting. Wow. So you guys are highly integrated. But you did tell me that you guys are going through reorg. Oh, I see. In Washington, D.C. Whew. Nice. Nice. It's pretty far away. That's good. Yeah. Um, in case of Japan, no matter how spread out in Japan, it's still Japan, right? So they really need to kind of open up and go to like Singapore and Hong Kong and those areas. But another problem is Guam. Usually when there's a tsunami in Japan, Guam gets a tsunami too. So you still have to be kind of far away, right, to protect yourself. Work from home. I'm not sure if if your company already have means for people to work from home. I think it's pretty good that if companies are used to people working from home, then when something does bad happen, people know how to do that. Work from home. I mentioned that because in 3/11, 2011 March, when Japan had the earthquake, people were not used to working from home. Japanese in general, they do not work from home. Did you know that? It's about how they manage people. They're just not good at managing people remotely. It just doesn't work. I know it just does not work. So so people go to work, and that's the requirement. But when they had to work from home, so they didn't. Right? When I came back to Tokyo like 5 days after, it was deserted because a lot of the foreign companies either was working from home or they just like booked out of Tokyo. They went down south or they went to like Singapore. They were gone. And I gotta tell you, it happened back in 2011. 5 years after, some of these companies have not returned back to Japan. Okay, but even some companies that wanted to work from home, because that was not the usual practice, they didn't know how. It wasn't set up. People couldn't get their emails. People could not access their network. It was horrible. So yeah, so work from home has to be set up. Okay, and people, used to doing so. External suppliers, yeah, have those arrangements in place so that they can help you. Because you say something like, okay, so if if we have the earthquake, I think in Japan they said that if you have an earthquake, know how you make sure that you have shoes that you can walk home in, right? And also know how to go home from where you work on foot. Because boy, howdy, really, when something happens, the trains stop, everything stops, right? But the problem is, Japanese in general commute like 2 hours one way. 4-hour commutes is standard. Well, I can't imagine walking a 2-hour ride on a train, right? It's horrible. So yeah, if you have, let's say, arrangement with the nearby hotels or something, how about the buses, right? How about the transportation? Do you have arrangement with them? So you do have to have these external suppliers. And no arrangement, of course, is just planning to fail in these. And let's talk about these timing when we come back from a break. We're at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we will talk about these timings, backup strategy timings. Okay, I'll see you back in 10 minutes. Thank you.